The IAD it's quite a complex venture. It's not something you can really do alone. You need cooperation from the artistic community and organizations and people around you. Tell me a little bit about Marilyn, your partner, your painting partner, and your life partner, Marilyn, and you bounce ideas off of her. We sit around and discuss things for the IAD, and how valuable is it to have someone who has such a keen eye like Marilyn give you advice and help you see where the IAD is going?
Well, I guess it's kind of like the expression, a little help from my friends, right?
A little help from my friends, yeah.
Get you a long ways. And
Yeah.
Marilyn's been a major asset behind the scenes and in front of the scenes sometimes.
Yeah.
And she was there right from the very beginning, and she knows what it takes, and she was very encouraged all the time.
Yeah.
And she's an artist in her own right, and that kind of helps because she understands exactly what the nature of the beast is and where it goes. And many times she'd come up with suggestions that I would take and it would work, and I'd go, wow, I never thought it would necessarily, but all of a sudden something happened, and it was nice, because I think sometimes different people have different visions of things, and when you can merge them all together, they come up to a better understanding of something, and hopefully they do. And most of the time they do, if you're open to new ideas and new suggestions.
Yeah, this is a painting, Marilyn's painting we're sitting in front
that's
of
one
right
of Marilyn
now.
Hurst's paintings. Yeah.
She's an incredible painter and also a brilliant writer.
Yeah.
Marilyn has a very interesting political perspective of the art world and life, and I find that truly refreshing, to work with her. And we've placed some of her writing on the website, and it's phenomenal. The really unique perspective she has.
She's kind of like a Mark Twain of women.
Kind of like a Mark Twain.
She's got a great sense of humor.
Yeah. But art and politics are inseparable, right?
Well, sort of.
It's unfortunate, but it really is. Because a lot of the funding to support the arts comes from grants and from bureaucrats and politicians. So how difficult is it to walk that line, that fine line between not being too influenced by the money, the funding that's provided, and staying true to your vision?
Well, it'd be like a major corporation that funds the major museum. And how much sway would they have in saying, well, I would rather have this exhibition than this exhibition? And they probably would have a certain amount of sway if they're donating $20 million to something. And in a local sense, it's not really a lot different. Politicians have their own slant to what they feel what art is and what they're willing to have within their community. And if you sort of understand where they're at, you can convince them to look one way or the other. But there's limitations.
Of course.
And they have to think, communities, one of the major things with the community, they have to think of everybody. And when you're sort of, as an artist, you're directing it in an individual way most of the time, and they have to think as the collective.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a limit that they'll put on something.
Is that hard to do? Is it hard to keep that balance?
Well, it is at that point. And most artists themselves aren't really geared to do that business end of it, to deal with cities and all that. They're the creators of the art, and when they get talking to the city people and that in different locales, it's a different conversation you have to get into.
Right.
And some artists are good at it, and some aren't.
Yeah.
The majority are not good at it.
I would agree. I would say most artists aren't natural promoters. Why do you think it is? Why is it so hard for artists to promote themselves? And I'm speaking personally too. I'm a writer and a photographer. I have been for 40 years, and I find it hard. And that's my livelihood. What do you think? Why is it so hard for us to talk to people about what we do?
Maybe it goes back to the introvert and the extrovert, where the making of the art is the introvert, and then the extrovert has to go out and peddle their wares, so to speak. And it's not so much wearing your heart on your sleeve, it's just that Most people don't understand the process.
Uh,
And they look at it and they say, I like it or I don't like it. There's no real in-between stage.
it's funny, isn't it? Yeah, yeah. Not a lot of gray area.
No, not at all.
How is it that how have you come to balance both of those facets of the art world so well? You're a brilliant artist and you're a very good promoter.
Well, I had quite an advantage when I was young that my dad was a jazz musician and my mother was a playwright.
Ah,
And in all aspects, I just never ever thought I couldn't do it, basically. And my mother actually, the one thing she gave me in life was independence. I had that ability to think for myself at a very young age, and she was quite sick for quite a number of years, so I sort of looked after myself. And I think that's a big part of it, where when you get older, you're just a little more able to think for yourself and take care of yourself
right.
and do the things that you really need to do on your own, and be smart enough to realize a lot of people can help you. And you have to work with people, and you have to like people.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it doesn't
Right.
work at all.
Yeah, that's really important. And just working with you over the last, not even a full year, but you're a very prolific artist also. You're busy all the time. What type of a schedule do you keep for producing art?
I paint every day. I'm pretty well in the studio, or my home studio or my commercial studio. One of the things I like to do is get involved in a lot of projects, and I'm sort of project oriented, like most males are, but I'm definitely project oriented, and to do with art. And I like helping a lot of causes. I get involved in a lot of fundraisers, and it's just being, not so much being busy, but just, I like people, and I like getting out and talk to people and
Yeah.
meet people, and I like sharing my art, and if I can, help people that way, it's a little complicated there.
Yeah, yeah. I've noticed that working with you that you work with a lot of young people. You inspire a lot of young people to promote their art. How important is that for you and the IAD to nurture youth?
Well, with the IAD, that was one of our mandates, as we discussed one time before, is that the new artists coming up, they need something to look up to. They need something to guide them. They need to know that there's somebody out in front who's actually doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives them the belief and the faith that it's not impossible. One of our mandates is really to help young artists, and some of the fundraising we do goes into bursaries that pay for young artists coming out of high schools.
Right.
And all forms of the arts, the visual as well as performing arts. And that's one of the things we do locally with the money that we raise. Some of the other countries I've noticed are dealing with a lot of youth artists and putting together very large events.
Right.
And it's great. And there's a school that's in Ontario actually that has put it down as a Spirit Day. And it's a big discussion day, and they do art all day long for the one day on the 25th of October.
Hmm.
And they call it a Spirit Day.
Yeah.
And it's kind of
That's the twist
fascinating.
on it, yeah. How important are fine art shows for the community?
Well, every community has many events going on, and like I said, there's all types of different artists living in the community, and there's a lot of different types of art shows that are done. But the Fine Art Festival is a very different kind of festival, because it's kind of like bringing in the symphony orchestra. You're trying to bring in the best of the best if you can, and expose the best in your neighborhood as well. And if people keep reaching for the higher levels of the quality and the expertise and the knowledge behind it, then these shows become showplaces for the town itself, and it's something they can be very proud of.
Mm-hmm.
And we're a normal show, it can be done in a hall or anywhere, but the Fine Art Festivals are a really unique thing. When they're
It is. It's a special animal too.
very,
Some people think that there are too many art shows, and it tends to confuse the public, waters things down.
well, again, probably one of the reasons I started International Artist Day was to try and put a collective umbrella for things,
Mm-hmm.
where some communities could do a huge show under this umbrella, and they could combine a lot of the other shows, the smaller ones that do, because a lot of the local groups, they tend to be very isolated. And you might have
Right.
4 or 5 groups in a community, and each one's putting on their own little event right around the corner on the same day. And it's fine, but they don't really go anywhere with this. And it doesn't help the artists themselves to expand
No.
their avenues, because they're locked in kind of just that small area, because very local.
Mhm.
And any artist needs to have a thought that they could go beyond being local
Right.
to enhance their art and to actually learn more.
So it's important to invite the right artists to your event, because they attract a wider cross section of people.
Absolutely.
And a larger group,
Yeah.
more national or international.
Mm.
So the secret really is to have a good mix of artists who may represent the area locally, and others who have stretched out a little further and have had success around the world.
Exactly. Most artists aren't really envious or jealous of each other. Most artists are quite happy to know where they fit within the grand scheme of things, and they
Right.
accept people that have the talent. And they love to meet them and love to show with them if they can, and love to dance with them, sing with them.
Yeah.
They love it. There's a very small minority that kind of gets jealous of each other. It just doesn't happen in the real professional world.
Right. Yeah. I think that's true whether it's the world of music or painters, sculptors. Yeah, we tend to gather around each other and support each other more than most communities. There is an underlying competition because there's only so much money out there. So you do want to make sure you stand out somehow so people can see your art. But it's a delicate balance. It's very hard to do. My background is primarily came from the music entertainment industry, and there's very many similarities between what painters do and what musicians do. We promote our art the same way, we starve the same way, and we have successes the same way too. And I think one of the values that the IAD brings is that we're not just limiting this to one or two types of art. We represent people who create art using glass and mosaics and music, writers, poets, painters, sculptors. It's the same challenges all of these artists have. Doesn't matter what they do.
It's anybody who dares to call themselves an artist.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What are some of the challenges when art organizations accept money from municipal funding to promote events? What complexities arise when you have to allocate funds and negotiate funds?
Well, basically there's two types of structure. One is as a nonprofit sort of system, and another one is more for profit. And they do distinguish between the two. And sometimes with the for-profit shows or events that are put on, they're willing to give up startup money.
Mm.
And through the startup money, the event gets maybe going the first year or even the second year. And then you have to discover ways of financing it yourself as you go along.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one is where the city recognizes that this type of an event is totally a nonprofit event, and they'll subsidize it year after year until they don't want to do it anymore.
Right.
But the for-profit ones are better only because it gives you a higher level of standards that you have to work at, and you have to come up with different creative ideas and how to really make it work.
And who decides what those standards are? Is it?
Well, normally it's the person that wants to put on the event has to have the know-how behind the scenes to be able to communicate that with the city people, and here's what I want to do, here's what's possible, and have them believe that this will work. Plain and
Yeah.
simple.
Yeah.
And you don't go with your hand out, you go with your ideas in front.
Of course. Yeah, that's a very good way.
And most cities, they would absolutely respond to creative people coming up with creative ideas.